Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Digital Dentistry Decoded podcast by IDD. I'm Dr. Ahmad Al-Hassiny, and I'm here to keep you up to date with all things digital dentistry. Now, we are continuing our trend on dental implants. Last episode, we had a very interesting guest, Tobias Reichter, and today, another amazing guest, Mr. Jay Kim, the VP of Business Relations and Education at TruAbutment. Jay, a big welcome to you, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be at your podcast.
The honor is mine, my friend. So talk to us. I understand, I did a little bit of reading into you and looking at your social profiles. You've been to Abutment for a while. Please talk to us about your history in dentistry, how long you've been with the company, and yeah, we'd love to know a bit more about you.
Yeah, I got into dentistry, I think now 16 years ago, just out of fluke. I started and got scouted by John, who's our current CEO of TruAbutment. He was launching a Korean implant company in the States. And just out of a fluke and through a connection, he got in connection with me. And so he said, "Hey, you don't look half as dumb. Do you want to do this thing with me?" And it looked really interesting. I didn't know how to spell implants at that time. I didn't know anything about dentistry, and it just, everything was so intriguing. And so I went on board, and rest is history. We built up Dentist USA, which is that Korean implant brand. We started a company called Denka, which is started by me, John, Dr. Tae Kim from USC, which was a concept of 3D printing a digital denture. And this was at a time where printing was very, very non-existing.
Sorry, how many years ago?
Oh boy, Denka was probably about 14 years ago, I would say.
Yeah, really in its infancy. I mean, I don't know anyone who's talking about it back then.
Yeah, it was, we were using huge object printers to do our printing. When we told other people that we were printing dentures, they spat at our faces and thought we were lying. And it was crazy time. And then we launched Denka in a few other countries. I had to travel to help with the setup and running of the business. I guess setting up the clinical aspect of it, also education. And then we came back and TruAbutment was ready to roll out. And this was 10 years ago? So yeah, and I promised myself that this would be the last startup company that I would ever do. But yeah, TruAbutment is keeping me very, very busy, keeping everybody at TruAbutment very busy. So yeah, rest is history.
Super cool, man. What a history. You've been in dentistry for a while. I mean, especially dental implantology, that specific niche. You have been in it from both the placement side of things and now the abutment side of things. I mean, I know TruAbutment is super popular in the US and probably all around the world, as you'll explain to me, but over here in Australia, New Zealand, a lot of people maybe haven't heard about it, haven't no idea what it is. And from my understanding, it's, you guys make a lot of custom abutments. That was kind of the core of the company, but you really have pivoted quite a lot into digital dentistry. And to me, it's super fascinating. I mean, especially we're going to talk about it, all the apps and all that photogrammetry kind of solutions that you're trying to come up with. So please let us know what, for those listening, what is TruAbutment like? What is the business here?
Sure. So like you said, TruAbutment has gone through multiple stages of evolution. We started as a lab business manufacturing service where we provided custom solutions to lab owners, and we expanded on that in that field. But now, if you look at TruAbutment, there's TruAbutment where there's the prosthetic custom solutions. We have our own implant line now called Urus. We've now gone into software to help finish that loop and finish that workflow, and we have education now. So we have multiple aspects of the business that we developed, ultimately because it wasn't enough for us to provide a prosthetic solution without going through and providing different solutions and different things that connects to that prosthetic solution. Mainly because of implants also. When we looked at the market, we had custom solutions and workflows made out for different kind of implants. The concept of time guides and how we could expand on that time guide concept. But a lot of the implant companies, when we proposed this, were interested and some were not. But the problem is they were too, how should I say, heavy. And there was too many moving parts, should I say, for them to adopt it. And one of the things that we really believe in is timing. We said, yeah, okay, if nobody's able to bring the solution in 2, 3, 4 years, then we'll make our own implant and finish that solution.
So you guys, so you don't just make the custom abutments and everything. You sell implants direct to TruAbutment?
Yes,
cool.
yes, it's under the TruAbutment umbrella.
That's super cool. I understand the implant business is kind of booming. It's doing well. Is that what you guys are seeing?
Yeah, well, we're doing very well. Implants, like I explained, the implant business came out to support the prosthetic side, which is very funny because a lot of companies do the opposite. They manufacture the implants and then create the prosthetic solution for it. But yeah, the whole point of that implant is digital. Because we have so many niche custom solutions, there needs to be an implant that is able to handle a time guide concept for more than one implant. And there's some implant companies out there in the market that's doing something similar, like Straumann is doing smile in a box concept. Dentsply Sirona has their Ozento concept, which is all the same implant in a box. But number one, right now, it's still too expensive, in my opinion. So there's a bar to entry at that financial level. And number two, they're limited to single units, which is great. It's a starting position, but we could do better. And we knew that we could do better. So we introduced that implant to provide solutions for example, an AOT solution, which is a custom multi-unit abutment solution, which we could customize the angle and the height of a multi-unit abutment. And that concept came out from us studying the market and seeing the shift of doing a crown down approach to treatment planning, where the prosthetic was made first, and then the implant position was made according to that crown. And so we looked at that concept and we said, okay, if we could customize the angle and the height of a multi-unit abutment, number one, to make it fit passively on whatever X amount of implants that you have, but also to dictate the prosthetic first and then lay the implant on where the bone was great, and then be able to angle it so that you don't have to go through stock straight 17 and 30 degrees. Was the idea and the concept and the birth of AOT. The problem with AOT is it's a custom multi-unit abutment. And all of our surgery requires you to have those abutments at the time of surgery. Yeah. And so it was a post surgery solution where doctors would use stock abutments to load a temporary, but in the transitional phase would use custom multi-unit abutments on either all the implants or some of the implants that they would like to have a little more passivity on the angulation. But our implant kind of fixes that, because our implant's position and concept is you're able to do all of that time guide and have a design of a custom multi-unit abutment and manufacture it all pre-surgery and put it in a box and deliver it.
Super cool, man. That's a really cool concept, especially the custom multi-unit abutment. I don't think I've heard that too often.
Yeah.
Obviously this all relies on everything being guided and carried out perfectly, because I see some doctors, they use the guide, they might start getting sick of it after a while, they throw it away, and then they'll start doing everything freehand. And do things fall over if you're not following the prescribed guide and prescribed surgery? Or
Sure. But you could be the best surgeon in the world and still the implant can move. We've all gone through this in surgeries. So that's why, for labs that utilize this service, and for, we call the service UPIC, the solution is called UPIC. Basically, we could provide 2 temporaries, because right now in this day and age, it's so easy to provide temporaries and print temporaries.
Yeah.
So we could provide 1 temporary that's loaded already, and another temporary that has a conventional hole where you could load a temporary abutment and seed the temporary and do the conventional methods to load and deliver the temporary if something went wrong, right? So you're kind of covered on both aspects, and it doesn't literally increase the financial burden of anybody that's using it, because we're just making one additional temporary. So
makes sense. I mean, the custom abutment thing as a whole is a really interesting market, I feel. I'd love if you could, what are the stats like? Because I know a lot of doctors do implants, or at least restore implants. A lot of doctors restore implants. And it seems to me that the vast majority is just stock abutments and tie bases. Is this custom abutment, not just for the all-on-X stuff, but even singles and bridges? Is it a growing market? Or, I mean, I think we all appreciate that a custom abutment is better. Obviously, there's the financial kind of limitations where doctors don't want to pay for them. But
right.
Is it a growing market? Is it, arguably better in every way? How are you seeing this, and especially from what you've seen over the years?
It's definitely a growing market, and one of the main drives to that growth is, like you said, cost, because costs are coming down. It's getting cheaper and cheaper to purchase a custom abutment from a doctor's point of view. I think about 9 years ago or 10 years ago, when we launched our custom abutment solution, the custom abutment price, the median and the average price for a custom abutment was still very, very expensive.
How much? Do you have a rough idea? How much is like very expensive?
So I've seen bills just for a custom abutment for $500, a little over $500, which was
USD.
Not very surprising at the time.
That USD?
That's USD. Yes.
Crazy.
Yes. If labs were to use custom abutment and pay that price, of course, labs would have to put a surcharge on that to provide that abutment and a crown service to a doctor. So the doctor's final bill could come out to as high as like $700, $800 for a single unit custom abutment and crown. And to an average GP, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, you can't really do business by paying $800 for a custom abutment and a crown. I think that's one of the reasons why companies like Dentistry Sirona and other companies concentrated on tie bases. If you look at what the CEREC solution, when they implemented the implant solution for the CEREC, they concentrated on tie bases and they marketed tie bases. And they said, basically, you could use a tie base to design a coping design, cemented on a tie base, and you would have a hybrid custom abutment. If you want a screw retained crown, then you would just design a one-piece crown on a tie base, and you'll be able to restore it as a screw retained restoration. And then there was a lot of studies, a lot of independent studies that came out comparing tie bases to custom abutments and so on and so forth. And a lot of people have different opinions about this and that, whether it's good enough or whether it's better and whatnot. But that was in the days where custom abutments were $500 and tie bases were maybe $100. So it made more sense to use a tie base. Now, not so much, because the market's going to a position where a custom abutment is almost at the same level as a tie base.
Really? Is that where we have reached? Because I do a lot of our custom abutments in-house. I have in-house labs, so we just mill titanium.
Sure.
For the average doctor just who wants to send it, are we getting close to them being the same price? That's crazy.
Sure. So one of the things that we made a lot of enemies 9 years ago, because one of the things that we did was we shocked the market and kind of reset the price on custom abutments. Because when we first launched our custom abutment solution, we marketed it for $180.
Wow.
That wasn't heard of at that price point. And so if you look at the market now, even the tie bases, the price that we're selling it to the labs and the CEREC tie bases that we're selling to doctors, every single company has come down at the same price point. So now the market average for a custom abutment is $200. And you can see this price from every which company, the biggest company that, Atlantis and different labs that mill custom abutments and so on and so forth. And tie bases has come down, for example, like a CEREC tie base has come down to, I would say, anywhere from $60 to $80. So the gap is definitely getting closer. And I wouldn't be surprised if it got even closer.
It's crazy. And I guess just like intraoral scanners, right? As the prices go down, adoption goes up.
It does, because it's easier. Because functionally, a lot of doctors understand the benefits of using a custom abutment. So if the financial burden is not there, then the question is why not?
I guess for those
What's
who,
keeping?
I guess for those who don't actually have an idea, maybe they've just always done tie bases. They just send it to the lab, whatever A2 shades zirconia, and the lab does it. Just for the sake of education, I know you're the VP of education. Sure. What are the benefits of using a custom abutment?
Sure. So it's very simple. There's 3 things probably that you could get out of a custom abutment that you might not be able to get out of a tie base, which is number 1, support for the crown, ideal support for the crown, because you're basically designing a custom form of a support for the crown that you're trying to cement. And then custom margins. So if depending on what the tissue condition is for the patient, you could design a custom margin for that patient. Whether if you're doing a cement retain, then it gets infinitely easier because you're subgingivally margining the custom abutment to like a 0.5 subgingival margin. So it's easier to clean. And number 3 is emergence profile. And this wasn't a hot topic before, but recently, probably 10 years or so, a lot of studies have been done about the importance of emergence profiles and how to properly design emergence profiles. And custom abutment, because it's a one-piece titanium, allows you from the connection to design a custom emergence profile. So it's overall, just clinically, if you look at the subgingival aspect, the functional aspect and whatnot, it's very beneficial for the patient.
And like you say, I mean, as the prices go down, it becomes, if we ever get to that 1-to-1 cost, I mean, why wouldn't you use one?
Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? Yeah. And so in your business, are you also doing the crowns as well? I assume you guys have a full milling center across maybe different locations in the world. You guys are doing a custom abutment, also making the crowns as well?
Yeah, that's where a lot of the confusion comes from, because a lot of the doctors think of us as a lab. And so they automatically think that we do crowns and bridges. We are not a lab. We are a manufacturer. And we have a lot of businesses that depend on us on the lab side also. And so we do not want to compete with labs. We are a solutions provider. We do provide solutions and chairside solutions for our B2C clients, which is our doctors. But we do that because they've already gone to that side of bringing in that lab work to their office, whether they're doing it themselves or they're hiring somebody to do it in their office. And if they've made that choice, it shouldn't limit them to get the type of service that they need to get to service their patients. So it was just a different development of services that we looked at when we looked at the doctor's market, especially the CEREC and the Plan Mecca market. And the reason why I say that is because for us to provide a solution, the doctor needs to have a form of a scanner to capture data, some form of a design software to design, and some form of manufacturing to mill or print their temporary or definitive prosthesis. If you have that, then it's easier for us to provide a solution for the doctor. And in the market currently, unfortunately, to my knowledge, Dentistry Sirona and Plan Mecca is the only company under the same umbrella that has that full workflow. Yep. If you go outside of that, then yes, of course, you could buy a Meted or a 3Shape scanner. You could buy ExoCAD. You could buy a roll and mill or whatever it is, and then combine it together. The problem is, and I say this with a very strong emphasis, there's a reason why companies excel and prosper when they make their products simple. Mm-hmm. It's just, I feel it's too much for your average dentist to go through that workflow and learn that process to handle all of that. Of course, there's a market for that, and there's dentists who love doing that, and good for them, because it gives them more tools to do the dentistry that they want to do. But implant dentistry is only a small part of an office. You guys do endo, you guys might do crown and bridges, you do, ortho, whatever it is that you're doing, it's only a small part. And for you to dedicate and have to go through that process of learning all of that software, all of that workflow, troubleshooting the mill, and so on and so forth, it's too much. So, and that's why CEREC prospers, because they make it easier for doctors to get in and design and manufacture. So.
Yeah, you're totally right, man. It's like the Apple ecosystem. When you have everything under one umbrella, it's just simpler, it's easier, it's more streamlined. And this is why I'm a big proponent of CEREC. I mean, a lot of people ask me, how do I get into chairside dentistry? And I always say, if you have the money, CEREC is the easiest way. And you can see that kind of in the data, because there's been a lot of different mills, a lot of different printers that have tried to enter the market and get into chairside dentistry, and they really haven't cracked it. And to be honest, I don't think the majority of dentists, they don't want to do chairside for the exact reasons that you mentioned. I mean, the stats on chairside dentistry is still only around 15, 20%, if that. And so there's definitely that kind of barrier to entry because of, I don't know, it's like you said, it's kind of hard to do, especially when you have it's kind of piecemeal. If you have like a Meta, Exocad, and a Roland and a different printer, it can be really hard to get those things talking together.
Yes, it's difficult, and the level of entry to utilize a scanner, a software, and a mill or a printer, they're all different.
Yes.
So you have to invest different amount of time to learn different stuff. And then you have to kind of piece together and learn that workflow and how it all kind of works together.
I have to say, it's getting easier though. Like a lot of companies are doing some really interesting things. SprintRay is making its own cloud platform with CAD. You guys are making some CAD, some AI CAD that we'll get into. A lot of companies are going into this market trying to solve the solution. I mean, one other example is Shining 3D, which is a really big player now. I mean, Chinese companies are funny because no one really thought much of them 5-6 years ago, and now they're almost, I wouldn't say leading, but people think of them. And so Shining 3D makes a CAD software, and it also makes a printer, and it's really interesting to see the market develop. And I bet it's interesting for you. You've been in this much longer than me, and God, if you're telling me you were in this 16 years ago, dentistry would have been a totally different ballgame.
Yeah, the Shining 3D kind of took everybody by surprise. I think they had an edge just because of the timing. I think they were able to look at the market right now and understand that making one product, and giving a piece of the solution is actually not the solution. And so kind of they were able to look at the market and say, okay, what do we need to create in order for Dr. A or Dr. B to utilize a solution from start to finish? And I think they did that pretty well. But it's definitely, it's almost mind-boggling the amount of innovation that's happening. And I do it for a living. So, but dentists, you guys have to see patients. So it's hard to try to keep up with technology and all the changes. There's different things that come out all the time. One of the policies or the thought process that we have at TruAbutment is to try to come up with a solution that tries to not disrupt as much as possible the current workflow. So if you look at a majority of our solutions, it's solutions that you could actually take and then put it into your current workflow and just make it better, is what we focus on. Because there's a lot of smart people out there right now that's doing the work for us, making good printers, making good scanners and different solutions and materials and whatnot. So we feel like we don't need to do that. We could take a look at the market and there's a lot of products still in the market that we look at and see many room for improvement. And unfortunately, I don't know. Maybe it's the cost issue. Maybe it's the market issue of a company not seeing enough benefit or making money in creating a solution like that. But it's unfortunate because I think a lot of people already know that there's room for improvement, but it doesn't happen for whatever reason. So we try to take on those projects one at a time. Now it's not one at a time because we're trying to, feels like, fit a 50-pound turkey on a dessert plate is what it feels like these days. But yeah, we try to look at individual niche markets and seeing what improvements that we could do on each market and coming up with a solution. Actually, this IO Connect that we may be talking about a little bit later, this solution came out as a fluke because we were developing T-markers, which is the photogrammetry. And we looked at the market and saw the bar to entry was still way too high. Everything cost too much and it all boils down and goes to the patients. And so it hinders the patients to do these type of surgeries because it becomes too expensive. So if we start and start lowering the bar of entry for GPs and different doctors, then that will trickle down into the patients. So we looked at the market and we said, what if we could do photogrammetry with a device that everybody had? And what's a device that everybody has? An iPad. And so we kind of twiddled with that idea and started looking at the specs and different kind of technologies that we could work with. And we got initial really great results and saw potential in that. And so we were developing T markers. And then we were thinking, but what about the doctors that love their scanners? There are doctors out there in the market right now that's so good at scanning that they're able to use vertical scan bodies, abutment level scan bodies on an all-on-4 and be able to transition into a temporary or transition into a final from that scan. And they've been doing it for, years and years. But yeah, those doctors, they preach. They say, yes, it's possible, you could do it, but still it's based upon scanning technology. And so we looked at that and we said, isn't there something that we could do for that? And the birth of that idea was IOConnect. And so while we were developing T markers, IOConnect idea came out, and it was easier and faster to manufacture IOConnect. So we came out with the IOConnect first, and then the T marker is coming out most likely first quarter of next year. So
yeah, super cool, man. I mean, let's get into these innovations. You covered a few. So the T markers, you sell these markers, you put them on there, you have an iPad app. I saw it at a few trade shows. I think you had it at ADEC in Chicago midwinter, making a lot of noise. Everyone's super interested. Everyone's like mind blown and putting it on social media. Does it work? I mean, I haven't tried it on a patient. I'm always worried. There's a lot of, there's a lot of really nice brochures at trade shows and a lot of good marketing at trade shows. And we've seen products be shown on trade shows and then never make it. To me, it's like, is an iPad really sufficient? Are you guys really getting data that, let's call photogrammetry the gold standard? And I totally agree. It's way too expensive for the average doctor, 30, 40,000, too much. And so if that is the gold standard and that's the kind of standard everyone's trying to beat or at least be the same as, with an iPad, are you really achieving this?
Sure. So the testing that we're doing, I now go into an area where there's a lot of arguments happening. But just to give you some data, the testing that we're doing with the T markers right now, we're getting about 30 to 40 microns of accuracy on the T markers.
Not bad.
And so the question, the biggest question is, what is enough?
Yeah, very true.
Right? So if a photogrammetry is able to produce anywhere from, 5 that they market to maybe 20 microns that some individual independent studies has came out with, what is the magic number that you're trying to go for to have your prosthetic fit? And there's no answer. We've been through this with multiple individual researchers and people that study this, and it's all over the place. There's no magic number. There was a number that was given to us by a professor that used standard methods of doing an all-on-4, where the impression technique and making a master cast provides somewhere between 100 to 110 microns of discrepancy. But we've been doing that for years. So yeah, and then people say, photogrammetry, which I also agree with is the gold standard right now, is able to produce 5 microns, 10 microns of accuracy. We've done our own testing also. That's very situational, but it works as an all-on-4 locator. So yes, it's true that we're trying to get as close as possible, but the more that we dug, the more kind of ugly things came out while we were doing the research on this. We found the amount of discrepancies that the printer has,
True.
the amount of discrepancies that the mill has, the amount of discrepancy that, the manufacturing of the multi-unit abutment has. It becomes crazy and crazy and crazy the more we dig. I think the most important question that should be asked is clinical proof, clinical cases documented cases, and that's what we're focusing on. Because if there's no magic number, some might be happy with the 30, 40 microns of accuracy. Some might not. Some may not. You choose your battles. But for those doctors that use our product and it works, then all of those arguments kind of go out the window because it's not important anymore to talk about microns. All of the product, let's say, for example, IO Connect, all of that product, what it's doing is it's taking the current accuracy and the technologies that the scanners have and trying to get rid of as many discrepancies as possible as a scanner is basically what that product is. So if you're going to scan for your full arch, and many people have done it, then what is the best way to scan for a full arch using an intraoral scanner? And that concept, that IO Connect concept, is what hits that mark, because there's a lot of studies that say the first field of view for a scanner is the most accurate. And a lot of improvements are being done by the AI, stitching AI. But the more you stitch, the more possible discrepancies you may have. So then how do you reach that goal of trying to get the scan bodies within the first field of view? You combine all of the scan bodies into one position where you could get the scan bodies in your first field of view, and finish scanning under 6-7 seconds, so that you have, a far less amount of stitching that you have compared to scanning a whole ridge. And so, I don't think we need to prove anything. It's already been proven that you could scan for a full arch. What we're doing is we're just improving it and trying to get rid of as many errors and discrepancies that you could have with the scanner.
Yeah, super interesting, man. You hit a couple of really great points. And obviously you guys are confident enough to release it to the market if it's coming next year. And that'll be very interesting to see once it's in people's hands. Photogrammetry with an iPad. Is it actually photogrammetry? Because it's funny with the marketing again, a bit like the Elite. The Elite, it's intraoral photogrammetry, but it's actually algorithms and really good stitching, because for photogrammetry, you need 2 cameras at least.
That's true.
So is it actually photogrammetry, this iPad T Marcus thing, or how's it kind of working? I mean,
from the point of view where you need 2 cameras or multiple cameras for photogrammetry to be photogrammetry, then no, it's not photogrammetry, because majority of that technology comes from algorithm and being able to algorithmically make the precise distance between the markers is basically what it's doing. So it's a different format, different form of photogrammetry. I don't know what we could call it. We'll just call it T markers. People could call it whatever that they want. We're just trying to make a good product, a working product. So,
and like you say, look, I mean, at the end of the day, I know there's some dental nerds that get into the microns and the papers and all of that, but at the end of the day, it's just clinical results that fundamentally are the key thing. I mean, most doctors, if you give them a tool and you say, this is how you use it, and they get a result consistently and accurately, they're happy.
Sure.
And it's fun that you mentioned with the IO Connect, where, for those who don't know, I'll put an image on the screen for those watching on YouTube. But essentially, it's this new trend with full arch scan bodies. Before we hit the cylinders, now they're all very flat, very low, and kind of everyone's converging their scan bodies to the middle. And it's super interesting that you say the first scan, the first image is the most accurate, because what comes to mind is the Elite workflow, because that's what they get you to do. They get you to converge all the scan bodies or the scan markers that they've made and start capturing with a large field of view camera all those scan bodies right in the middle. Now, one key difference between the Elite workflow and what you guys are doing is obviously the Shining 3D Elite workflow is kind of locked to their system, whereas yours, you can use it with any scanner. And is it a totally open system? So I use a scanner, I use the IO Connect, and then can I export that and put it into Exocad?
Yep. Our business model is to integrate our solutions as open as possible to other solutions. That's what our core belief is. That's what we believe will drive the market. That's, I feel, what we believe that other people will look at those solutions and be able to improve on it. and make different kind of products that could come out, or improvements that could come out in the market. We don't believe in exclusivity. Some of the things that we do are a little bit questionable because we make it too open. But it's because we believe that innovation and those kind of solutions should be open, so that you could integrate it into any kind of workflows. Because it's that concept of it, going back to that concept of every single dentist has different niche things that they do, different workflows and whatnot. If you look at all-in-4 concepts, there's so many different ways of achieving that goal and different things that you could utilize. Who are we to say one's better than the other? Of course, there's some people in the market that does that, but yeah, we're not interested in having that argument of what's better. All we're trying to do is looking at hard clinical facts and data and literally trying to remove deficiencies, trying to remove errors, improving whatever it is that we're trying to improve on, and then putting it out in the market so that you could integrate it into whatever solution that you want. So the software to extract the data, the IOConnect data, is on our TruSuite software, but it's free. It's open source, so you could export it as an MUA. You could export it as a healing cap that we provide with our IOConnect. You could export it as all these different formats. And then our libraries, of course, open. So you could work with 3Shape or Exocad and use that library to do what you will, I guess, with that solution. And that goes for our other softwares too, our Trust software, which is our tie-based or custom healing abutment and crown design software. And it's open architecture. You don't have to send it to us. A lot of people think that, you design a custom abutment, you press a button and it comes to us and we manufacture. That's not the case. It's all open architecture. You could design it, export it, and mill it yourself and do whatever you want with it. And it's free. So
super cool, man. And you guys it takes me back to what I said at the start. It was a very interesting pivot to go this hard into digital. And we'll talk about the TruSuite in a second. What drove that? Was that just, smart market analysis? Did you guys see the writing on the wall and saw that dentistry was going digital? Or what was the driver because not many implant companies, abutment companies, or really many dental companies are going all in on digital like you guys are.
Yeah. So we had the vision for that in the early stages of our company. The bottleneck, of course, was capital, because even if we wanted to, it's the amount of money that it takes to R&D different components of either software or whether it's manufacturing or whatnot. It gets exponentially more expensive the more you try to do with more people, unfortunately. So we had the vision for that. But it came from, even if you look at our custom abutment, we had a specific concept for our custom abutment that I don't think a lot of people realize, and it's not important, but we mill our custom abutments using a what's called a CNC Swiss type machine. So it's a fancy word for a titanium bar. It's this huge machine that uses a long titanium bar to mill out whatever it is that you want to mill out. It's used in space programs, NASA, Implant. Every single implant company has this machine to mill out their implants. So they use this machine to mill out their implants and their connection. What was not being done was using that CNC Swiss type machine to mill out prosthetics and custom abutments. And the reason why that was important for us is majority of the companies, even these implant companies that had the CNC Swiss type machines, were using what's called a pre-mill blank to mill out custom titanium abutments. The problem with pre-mill blanks was that after you mill the custom abutment, there's a titanium sprue that's attached to the abutment that you would have to manually cut and polish. And in a world where we talk about microns of accuracy, that will inevitably alter the original design of the custom abutment. And so what a lot of labs ended up doing was they would mill the custom abutment and they would engage that to the model and they would rescan it to manufacture and design a crown. And so when we mill from a CNC Swiss type machine, there's no sprue, because what we're doing is we're milling the abutment and the connection all in one piece, and it cuts right at the connection. And so we're able to get down the accuracy of that connection and that abutment within 5 microns of accuracy. And so if we're able to do that and manufacture an abutment, then that means whoever is designing the crown could design the crown without the abutments getting delivered. And once the abutment is delivered, they'll have a perfect fit if we could guarantee that fit. And so we call that a split file workflow. The only bottleneck to, and what every single company were able to do was to use that CNC Swiss type machines to produce enough custom abutment, because it's an expensive machine, to make it worthwhile for them to use that machine was the bottleneck. Mm. And so, I mean, yeah, sure, you could, any company that has a CNC Swiss type machine could mill a custom abutment for you, but they'll have to charge $1,200, $1,500 for it, because they're only able to produce maybe 15 abutments per day using that machine. What we were able to do was break that bottleneck, and we were able to mill 110 to about 120 custom abutments per machine per day. Wow. And that engineering is what opened up that split file workflow, and which opened up all of these different solutions that we were able to do because of using that CNC Swiss type machine. And because we're able to manufacture it on a certain scale, we're able to market it as a cheap solution or a marketable solution where you pay, $220 for a custom locator, which is, in my opinion, very reasonable. So from that point, because we use CNC machines, there was a plethora of different custom solutions that we were able to do just because we use a CNC Swiss type machines. And the way that we mill using a CNC Swiss type machine, where you can't do, where there's limitations of using a 5-axis milling machine using a pre-mill blank. So
it's super interesting. So it was a lot of kind of hardware that drove the innovation, being able to tap into that hardware. That's crazy. Huh?
Yes.
I guess the natural question is, how do you guys pull it off? What came first, the orders of the abutments, or did you guys just go all in and get the mills and sit?
Sure. I mean, are you sure that we pulled it off? I don't know. I think I think we were very lucky in labs looking at that solution and adopting that solution and seeing how that will benefit their lab as far as the overall production goes. Mm-hmm. So for example, if they use a pre-mill blank and mill their own abutments, they could get a custom abutment for, let's say, for example, $40 is their cost, but they would need to pay $70 in order to manufacture it from us. Mm. But the labs, I think a lot of the labs looked at it and said, well, we don't need to hire technicians to design a custom abutment, or we don't need to hire lab technicians to go ahead and process it through a mill. We don't need to go through maintaining those burrs and that machine for milling custom abutments. And we don't need to invest in time for our technicians to rescan or use a model function, because the whole process or the whole idea of having a split file workflow was a modelless workflow, where we said, sure, if you want to integrate a printed version or a mastercast version of whatever your workflow is to verify, that's fine. But what we're saying is you don't need to, is basically what we're saying. You don't need to create a model. And I think a lot of labs, fortunately, adopted that idea and saw the benefit of using our custom abutments for the workflow, because it ended up saving them more money than actually milling it themselves. And so we grew very, very fast in that market, which allowed us to come up with custom angle screw channel solution. I think we're still the only, or if not the only, one of the very few prosthetic solutions company that is able to do a angle screw channel on a custom abutment, because a lot of the solutions right now in the market is an angle screw channel solution on a tie base. Mm-hmm. So, but the only difference is, because it's custom, we're able to, on specific cases, we're able to design it in a way where we have a lot more surface area. Because if you look at a tie base solution, they have to literally hack away at 1/3 or half of that cement post in order to create that pathway for an angle screw channel. Whereas if you do a custom, then you're able to create a lot more cement space and surface area. So, and support.
So that's really cool that you guys are one of the only companies that do that. Is it something that you think other companies are going to get into, or is it just because, like you say, a lot of these companies have these machines? So why do you think other companies haven't jumped onto this?
Probably a few reasons. Number one, some companies might not have the engineering background to be able to solve that issue of manufacturing in a certain quantity for them to make a profit. It might be too niche for them and they don't see profit in that solution. So even looking at our custom locator and custom multi-unit abutment solutions, people who use that solution love us. And you could kind of understand why. It's that dentist that has, for example, a 4-implant overdenture and just that one implant just messing up his dentures all the time. And then we come along and say, hey, we could fix that for you. We could fix that angulation and height for you. And as easy as him doing an implant level scan and asking for a custom locator, now his issue is solved, where before he had to work with a straight 17 or 30 degrees. We've seen some crazy cases on interiors where literally it looks like two shotguns coming out. Like, what do you do? You know, do you try to recover and graft and try to fight another day? I'm sure whoever it is that placed that implant, didn't try to kill that patient and did that on purpose. They tried to see where the bone was and place that implant. That was the best kind of position that they got away with. But it leaves the doctor that needs to prosthetically solve and provide the prosthetics for that patient just in a state where it's you can't do it. How do you do it? So doctors loved it. We saved their asses and they love us for doing that. But it's not a market. It's not a product that every single doctor might want to use. Number one, because it might be cheaper to use stock. Or number two, because you treatment plan your case so that you can use stock from the beginning of straight 17 and 30 degrees and you have no issues of using stock. And it's a post-surgery solution. If you don't have an implant that has a time guide concept, you cannot design and manufacture a custom locator or a custom multi-unit abutment and have it pre-surgery. So, with all of these things in mind, it's not a big moneymaker for a lot of the companies. If you look at another market, which is steric tie bases, right? We came up with the concept of multiple gingival tie bases. It's such a very simple concept, and doctors hit their heads and like, why the hell can't you make this before? TruAbutment is such an easy concept, and there could be, who knows the answer, but there's a lot of bottlenecks now because FDA probably about 10, 12 years ago has started regulating CAD with the CAM. And so before it was really easy where you had to just validate CAM. Now you have to validate that whole workflow through a specific CAD. And if you use a different CAD, then it's not validated and your FDA goes out the window. So we looked at the market and we said, a lot of doctors are doing guided surgery, and where they're placing their implant is, by measuring biological width and placing that implant 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter subcrestal. So what's your solution? The only solution was you bone profile the hell out of that implant site so that a tie base could fit, which is a very stupid idea. Or you do a custom abutment, but the problem with custom abutment is you need a scan body that profiles out of that site if you're not going to use a bone profile on that implant site. So we saw the market and we understood why you need a multiple gingival height tie bases, because a lot of people were placing their implants subcrystal now, not at the bone level. So when we made it, so many people were happy. But now the question is, like you said, then what's stopping other companies from doing it, or even Dentsply Sirona from doing it? Who knows? There are some companies that have adopted that idea and made their own tie bases. multiple gingival types, and I think that's great, right? Because it's needed. But it's maybe because we already have the solution now and we're very well known, that maybe they don't see a need for doing another research and implementing that. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to think that much. It's a lot of our product are very specific solutions that look at different parts of the market and see where we could improve on. And so,
well, speaking about those products, so we obviously talked about the T markers, the IO Connect, and you also have some interesting software products, as you mentioned, designing custom abutments. But what are you guys would develop some other software? I saw like a denture design. What other things are in that TruSuite?
Yeah, so we have a treatment planning software called Pylon. It's a free treatment planning software. It is based upon Dentique. I'm not sure if you are familiar with that software, but Dentique software, kind of similar to what Blue Sky Bio does and some other companies, they charge you per export of your treatment planning. So basically, we took that software and we got rid of that paying portion. So you can use Dentique software
to clarify, because you say treatment planning, we're talking about implant guided surgery treatment planning. Is that what we're talking about? Okay,
yes.
sweet.
Yes. So anybody who's familiar with Dentique, when they use Pylon, they'll see that it's very, very similar. All we did was we got rid of the export fee. When you want to export, we made it open architecture so you could export it as an open source. And then we did a few different things. For example, we allowed the integration and digital seeding of our CEREC scan post on a TruImplant implant, because if you could do that, then you're able to take that data and then bring it into a CEREC and design a temporary crown or design a custom healing abutment pre-surgery using that software.
Super interesting. And what's the business model here? Is it, I mean, to me, it may be clear, get as many people on the TruSuite as possible and then sell them on your other products.
Sure. So the number one goal right now is data. We look at data as the end game, because we're going to be developing a lot more different things. Even the AI that we're integrating into our trust software, which is the prosthetic, the crown, and the custom abutment design software, we're utilizing AI and integrating AI into that process. And we need to use a lot of data. We need to implement a lot of data. And not only that, anything else, if we, and we are expanding, but when we expand that to multiple unit bridges, when we expand that to a full arch design software, we need to have data to utilize that algorithm and implant learning. And so, number one most important thing is data. Number two is, right now, we don't see the need to have a profit margin on the software side, because our core belief is that total workflow. And even if there's trust in Pylon, it doesn't force anybody. Even if it's free, people won't jump on it and say, oh, it's free, so I'll use this and not use any other software. That's not the case. You use all different kind of software, and everybody has different workflows that they use. And so if they want to utilize the Pylon software for your treatment planning or the trust software for your prosthetics, it's there for you to use as a tool, is how we look at it. You shouldn't be penalized, or you shouldn't be pocketed into a service just because you use our custom development or our solutions. You shouldn't be pocketed into paying for the design portion of that service, is how we feel like right now. And in the future, it might change just because, and I'm sure you understand this also, the amount of database as the users grow, it might come to a point where we need to have some kind of income in order to maintain that big of a server. And so when that time comes, it might change to like yearly subscription fee to use all of those softwares or whatnot. But at this point, everything's free.
Kind of like what Meta did, the no subscription, then a small subscription, and a large subscription. And I think we all
Yep.
appreciate that all the cloud storage and all that is not free. And interesting thing about the data, I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there anything unique or interesting? You guys have a lot of data. Is there anything kind of, I don't know, interesting that comes to mind that what you've seen in the industry?
A lot of interesting stuff. Can you be a little bit more specific as to what you are asking as form of that design data, or are you asking other data that we implement as far as treatment planning?
Anything and everything, my friend. Just anything that sticks out. I mean, even if it's clinical based, design data, what doctors are doing, what's the most frequent thing. I'd also be curious to pick your brain about 3D printing. And I know a lot of doctors are doing full arch printed prosthetics, and do they actually work, like long term?
Sure. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble by saying this.
We can iterate out, if you will.
Sure. One of the interesting things that I see is I've seen a transition of a lot of the abutment and crown design data that we see is getting possibly worse and worse in quality. And
thing.
But who am I to say? But this is just from my point of view and my perspectives on the clinical and the engineering aspects of what a crown design should be and a custom abutment design should be. I think what's happening is the AI portion is improving, which gives the doctors a little more, should I say, a little more tools or the rest of mind that the AI will take care of a lot of the things that they did on a detailed level. For example, they would take 20 minutes to design a posterior crown to the detail that they liked. And then you would see that transition into like a 7-minute crown where it's not as detailed.
We're getting lazier and lazier.
I mean, who knows why that spike? It might be a skew of data that I see, but I've seen that and I thought that was very interesting and funny. Maybe they think that the proposal is getting better and better, and so they kind of touch it up less and less as a definitive crown.
But, there's arguments for AI doing a lot of the diagnostics and stuff that we're relying on it too much and not actually using our own knowledge and expertise. That's very
kind of like a guided implant surgery. You need to be able to do a freehand surgery and go through all kinds of implications and issues that could happen. Then you could go into guided surgery. It shouldn't be the other way around.
And this is just coming like your crutch, because once one thing goes wrong, then you're lost. What about the 3D printing thing? What are your thoughts? As you mentioned, and I think everyone in the entire industry, every person I speak to on this podcast says 3D printing is the next big thing. It's super exciting. It's what they're looking forward to, especially for implants. So you guys see this. You guys have probably researched this a lot. Crowns, bridges, full arch. Is zirconia the gold standard and here to stay, or do you really see these 3D printables being able to replace zirconia?
It's a good question. Don't know if I could say because I'm not an expert in the field, but judging from what I've seen, I definitely think it's heading towards that direction. I think it's heading towards the direction of being able to print zirconia-like material. Mm-hmm. It's able to post-process as you're printing different materials, a very similar material to lithium disilicate that could be printed. And it's just gonna get better and better. Right now, I looked at titanium printing like 9 years ago. It was the size of a house. The printer was the size of a house, but fascinating, because that's where everything starts. And then you kind of develop it to a point where you could have it at the palm of your hand. But yeah, it's just a question of when and how accurate. How accurate do you need for that print to be? If you could print titanium on a 5 micron level or 10 micron level, then you print your own implants. You don't need to buy implants. You don't need to mill out custom abutments. You just, design and fabricate and print out custom abutments yourself. And printing is superior to milling in one aspect, that the mill has to have a certain mill strategy in order to mill out something. So it has limitations and hard times on milling out some undercuts, some designs that require you to move through the y-axis and come positive and negative, just because it uses burrs. But printing doesn't have that. It's kind of open to your imagination. You could design and print whatever you want, pieces or whole parts of it. So it's scary and it's interesting and it's exciting at the same time. I still think there's some ways to go to get to that level, but I definitely think that a lot of companies have their eyes on improving and going towards that direction, where you'll be debating what's faster or what's more accurate, printing or milling, and comparing those two. So
super fascinating and inspiring way to kind of conclude this episode there, Jay. As the last sort of question, I always love to pick people's brains like you, very intelligent people that have been in the industry for a long time and are watching the industry closely because basically their livelihood depends on it. Apart from 3D printing, what are some other interesting things maybe from TruAbutment that we may see? I mean, obviously IDS is a big event next year and all the companies seem to be geared up for it. But industry-wide, whether it's your company or industry-wide, what are some of the interesting things you'll see?
Sure. So you'll probably definitely see a lot more materials that come out for 3D printing, which is because it's a hot topic. I feel like it might not be IDS next year, but you will see a lot of different solutions come out for a full arch, because full arch is a very hot topic right now and is getting a lot of focus. And so I feel like there's a lot of companies right now, including ours, that's developing product or software or workflows to improve that aspect. Of course, our T Markers is launching most likely at IDS, Germany next year. So that'll make some people happy, make a lot of people unhappy, a lot of people arguing. And then, there's...
I'll have to test it.
Yeah, sure. That's why we're bringing it out to the market, so individual people can test it and see for themselves. We're very, very, I guess, confident. And when we talk to our employees, we are very, very definitive in saying that we don't like to say ours is better or that's better or what this is better than this and whatnot, because that's not the point of our product. Is photogrammetry better than IO Connect? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But it's a different market, right? Because photogrammetry is that photogrammetry market, and then IO Connect is a scanner market. And so we're coming out with different projects. We might come out with, we have a thought, and I'm not sure if I could say this, but we have a thought that we could change the iPad or the iPhone into a scanner, intraoral scanner. And so we're developing an adapter that could adopt into that portion. We're also looking into materials, 3D printable materials also, because we acquisition Denka, which is the denture company. I think that probably is the biggest market and changes that we'll see, full arch and printing.
Especially printing dentures, like you said, that is a huge market that's growing very fast. But look, man, Jay, I really appreciate your time. It's been an inspirational chat, and I'm sure people are listening have learned a lot and kind of, we're all kind of trying to open up our minds to this horizon in front of us of digital dentistry, because like you said, the innovations just keep coming in. They just keep coming in, and they're just coming faster and faster. This concludes our episode, my friend. I once again appreciate your time. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure is mine. And for those listening, this is another episode of the Digital Dentistry Decoded podcast, where we keep you in the know of everything digital dentistry. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, I'm sure Jay will be looking into the comments to see how the podcast went. But please subscribe to us, share it with your friends, and this helps keep the podcast going and keeps you up to date with all things digital dentistry. Thanks for listening.